Year 10-11, welcome to your revision on the theme of ambition in Macbeth in preparation for your GCSE exam. Very briefly then, and before we go into any real detail in terms of quotations and character, in the play ambition is helped by the prophecies of the witches and is arguably what drives Macbeth and Lady Macbeth to commit the evil deeds. In the opening scenes of the play, remember, Macbeth is a brave and valiant Scottish general who is not naturally inclined to commit such, obviously, evil atrocities, but he has a deep desire for power, and so he kills Duncan against his better judgment. Lady Macbeth pursues her goals with greater determination, and I'm going to detail that later. She is less capable of withstanding the repercussions of her acts and of her conscience, and obviously, as we well know, she goes mad. Ambition has different consequences then for the pair of them. Lady Macbeth is driven mad by guilt, whereas Macbeth appears to grow stronger and more determined. That's very, very basically, as I say, I'm going to do a lot of detail now, so pause the video as and when you need. Macbeth's ambition is driven by a number of factors, including the prophecies, as I've just said. So the witches prophesy that Macbeth will become the king. Macbeth believes them, and the various prophecies are realised throughout the play. However, it's unclear whether these prophecies are preordained, as in fated, fate has decided that that's going to happen, or self-fulfilling. Also, Lady Macbeth is obviously another driving force behind the murder of the king. She is almost the catalyst that encourages Macbeth to overcome his strong sense of guilt and take action on the prophecies. Macbeth's ambition spirals out of control and forces him to murder again and again to cover up his previous wrongdoings. Macbeth kills King Duncan. Banquo's murder soon follows once Macbeth fears that the truth could be exposed. Ambition then is presented as a corrupting force. It seems to work alongside the supernatural and ultimately encourages betrayal. We're going to look obviously at betrayal in a lot of detail when we hit Lady Macbeth in a moment. The prophecies of the witches are a vehicle which seem to inspire violence, and the tragic hero Macbeth will succumb to these prophecies. We're going to move on now to some key quotations before we look at Lady Macbeth in a little bit more detail. So again, pause the video where you need. So in Act 1, Scene 3, this is where we get Macbeth meeting the witches. Macbeth says, quote is in red, translation is in blue. Macbeth, my thought whose murder yet is but fantastical. Shake so my single state of mind that function is smothered in surmise, and nothing is but what is not. So in black there, very quickly, Macbeth is quick to jump to murder, which the witches haven't mentioned. The fact that his first thought is about killing the king is suspicious to the audience, almost as though they've just awoken a murderous ambition that was there all along. And obviously, if you look at your translation, you've got, even though it's just a fantasy so far, the mere thought of committing murder shakes me up so much that I hardly know who I am anymore. My ability to act is stifled by my thoughts and speculations, and the only things that matter to me are things that don't really exist. So obviously what we can see here then is that he is confused by reality and fantasy. He wishes to believe in the prophecies of the witches, and he is so shaken that he considers this idea of murder and this idea that the present King Duncan must die. If he does indeed become the king, Macbeth realises that something that is not at present true must take place, hence him seeing what is not. And then obviously another side to this is that he is smothered in surmise, and he contemplates and is disturbed by the fantastical, and the fantastical in this instant is regicide. So in another way, he's hoping that fate will take it out of his hands. But remember, I suppose the key thing here is this jumping to this idea of murder and the fact that he appears confused already between fantasy and reality. When we move then in Act 1, Scene 4, we get this quotation. The Prince of Cumberland That is a step on which I must fall down, or else overleap, for in my way it lies. Stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires. The eye wink at the hand, yet let that be which the eye fears when it is done to see. So obviously your translation is in blue there. Malcolm is now the Prince of Cumberland. To become king myself, I'm either going to have to step over him or give up because he's in my way. Stars, hide your light so no one can see the terrible desires within me. I won't let my eye look at what my hand is doing, but in the end, I'm still going to do that thing I'd be horrified to see. So again, Macbeth describes his ambition as being black and deep desire. So that's interesting use of language. Obviously, we can analyse the adjective black and this adjective deep and the fact that he doesn't want the light to see his desires. I suppose that's almost a mimicking of Lady Macbeth when she's talking about the dark night and the thick night. So this idea that they want to hide what they've done. In effect here, Macbeth is saying that his plans regarding Malcolm and even Donald Bean are made, but they're going to remain hidden until he has disposed of Duncan, their father. So Macbeth sees that to become the king, he must overcome Malcolm and Duncan so that he is next in line. He is describing this as a step on a stoop that he can either be too intimidated to attempt or that he can leap over. And as I said, the part of stars, hide your fires, let not light see my black and deep desires shows that he is not proud of wanting to kill people. So he is trying not to show it so that people obviously can't see. And I suppose very subtly that reminds us of Lady Macbeth. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. This idea of appearance versus reality. And over the course of the play, we see Macbeth's desire for power and his willingness to murder become more present and become a key characteristic and a key trait of him. And actually what it does though is it becomes so powerful that it turns him into a tyrant. And this passage is the first time we see these characteristics, this idea of black and deep desires that aren't to be seen. And it does remind us that he has always been hungry for power. It's just the prophecies of the witches that have stirred it up and brought it to the forefront of his mind. And when we reach Act 1, Scene 5, which is our introduction to Lady Macbeth, we have her opening lines, which are all about ambition. Her husband, obviously, her husband's ambition. She is not talking to him. This is a soliloquy. We get this. Glamorous thou art, and Cawdor, and shall be what thou art promised. Yet do I fear thy nature, it is too full of the milk of human kindness to catch the nearest way. Thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. You've got your translation in blue there. In black here, before I analyse it, I've just put, here's another count against ambition. After reading the letter from her husband, and she recounts the witch's prophecy, Lady Macbeth's thoughts immediately turn to murder, which reminds us of Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 3. This idea that they both jump straight to murder. Lady Macbeth's problem is that Macbeth has ambition, but he doesn't have what they need to see it through, if you like. Whereas Lady Macbeth does, because she creates the plan. And as we analyse Lady Macbeth in a lot more detail, she has the presence of mind, the calm and the confidence to kind of see the plan through. Your translation then is, you are Thane of Glamis and Cawdor, and you're going to be the king just like you were promised. But I worry about whether or not you have what it takes to seize the crown. You are too full of the milk of human kindness. Classic, easy metaphor to remember there. You are too full of the milk of human kindness to strike aggressively at your first opportunity. You want to be powerful and you don't lack ambition, but you don't have the mean streak that these things call for. So basically, she knows her husband very well and she understands that he isn't ruthless enough to use violence to obtain the crown. This idea that he's too soft-hearted, the metaphor, too full of the milk of human kindness, shows us, I suppose it's about gender. We're going to come to gender in a moment as well. This idea of breastfeeding a baby. And this is where she's got this idea of weakness from. It's also an insult when applied to a man, isn't it? Here to call them feminine or to insult their manhood, as we know from the society at the time. And then she says, thou wouldst be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. By using the word illness, we see the ruthlessness of Lady Macbeth. And this idea that there's no question that Macbeth is ambitious, but she's afraid that he isn't sufficiently ambitious enough to secure the crown in the way that they need to. She obviously concludes that soliloquy by hoping that he will return home. And she says, "The poor spirits in mine ear chastise with the valour of my tongue." And here we realise that perhaps Macbeth is not evil like other Shakespearean characters, but is somebody good who is going to do wrong. Your tragic hero, he has this flaw, and Lady Macbeth, I suppose, taps into it, doesn't she, through her persuasive techniques. If we just focus on Lady Macbeth for the moment, betrayal is obviously tightly linked to Lady Macbeth. So at first, we know that Macbeth is reluctant to commit regicide. That's evident straight away. He is convinced by Lady Macbeth, a driving force of betrayal within the play. She says, I'm not very good at pronouncing this, so stay with me, "Letting I dare not wait upon, I would, like the poor cat, I the adage." Apologies for my pronunciation. So the willingness here of Lady Macbeth to reach the epitome of betrayal is displayed through this simile, and it heightens our understanding of the overpowering and strong nature of her character. Don't forget, it is her skillful tongue and merciless speech, there's a few speeches, that convince Macbeth to complete the deed. And this is an old proverb, and it basically translates from Latin, I think, very loosely to "the cat would like to eat the fish, but it doesn't want to get its paws wet or its feet wet." So again, here Lady Macbeth is questioning Macbeth's true ambition. If he's going to go after what he wants or not. Is he going to perform the deed, or is it just something he wants to fantasize about? And again, by doing this, it shows us, I suppose, the mercilessness of Lady Macbeth in comparison to Macbeth. In the sense that, as I said earlier, she is a lot more confident in terms of her desires here. Massive quotation then, easy to remember for us: "Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." So through the use of this metaphorical imagery, Lady Macbeth's untamed ambition turns into evil. And she encourages Macbeth to hide his true immoral intentions of killing the king, and refers to the biblical story of Eden when referring to the serpent. So don't forget, the serpent persuades Eve to eat the apple. So again, we have this direct parallel here in terms of Lady Macbeth persuading Macbeth. And by comparing Macbeth to a serpent, we see the sinister and sly nature of his behaviour, and obviously his lust for power verges on sinister, doesn't it, and becomes sinister. And ultimately, Macbeth's willingness to betray highlights his tragic flaw, which is unbridled ambition. And obviously, as I said earlier, it goes hand in hand with Lady Macbeth, and she is the one that persuades him to commit the deed. Critics and people and anyone who's read the play can often argue about whether Lady Macbeth is immoral or immoral. And some argue that it is Lady Macbeth's immoral nature that allows her to come up with the plan. Don't forget, she would have killed the king herself had he not resembled her father as he slept. She says that. But others and other critics, and another interpretation for you, is that others will argue that she is more moral, hence calling on the powers of the supernatural. "Unsex me here, fill me from the toe to the top, full of direst cruelty, spirits that tend on mortal thoughts." Her ambition and lust for power are all too obvious from her opening scene. I think you need to decide whether she is wholly immoral and doesn't understand the ramifications of her actions, or immoral in the sense that she does. Some people will argue that she does understand the repercussions of her actions because she goes insane and because of the guilt. So again, this is just interpretations for you to consider, but she does seem to connect to the supernatural verbally, doesn't she, with that metaphor, "unsex me here," and the idea that she needs the spirits to tend on mortal thoughts, and she speaks to the witches when she says murdering ministers. So again, consider whether or not she believes she needs help in committing the deed herself. And we're going to move on to gender now, because that's a huge part of her character. You could argue that she is so ambitious that she defies gender and gender stereotypes. She is aware that femininity perhaps makes her weak. Therefore, she suppresses any maternal instinct or any feminine instinct that she has. And we've got unsex me here, massive quote. She feels like she needs to be more masculine in order to have what she really wants, which in this case is the crown. Take my milk for gold. Look at that imperative, which links us to the quotation that Macbeth is too full of the milk of human kindness. This idea that anything maternal or feminine will make you weaker, because historically women are the weaker sex. And then we've got that horrible graphic quotation, but again, I have given suck and know how tender it is to love the babe that milks me. I would, while it was smiling in my face, have plucked my nipple from his boneless gums and dashed the brains out had I so sworn as you have done to this. So again, she's manipulating Macbeth here by talking about how she would have even killed her own child had she so promised to do so. And again, when we're talking about the theme of ambition, Lady Macbeth, much like Macbeth, is ambitious beyond limit, and she comes to be punished for that, doesn't she, by the end of the play, and so does he. But again, in the opening scenes, you can argue potentially that she is more ambitious than him. She has more of an evil nature than him. Yes, they both thought of murder in like quite quickly, but she is the one that goes out of her way to ensure that it's going to happen. And this ambition linked to gender is something, I suppose, quite poignant. And throughout the deed and the persuasion and after the deed, she is ridiculously calm. When Macbeth returns trembling from having committed the murder, she has presence of mind, calm and confidence to get everything done. On discovering that he's brought the daggers back, she tells him to return and finish the plan, but he won't. And when we get this, infirm of purpose, give me the daggers, the sleeping and the dead are but as pictures. 'Tis the eye of childhood that fears a painted devil. And she does it herself. So again, you're talking about ambition and ensuring that nothing will interfere with her and the crown and this idea of royalty. On her return, she again displays this calm presence of mind because there's knocking. There's a knocking at the gate, isn't there? There's a knocking occurring, and she persuades Macbeth to retire to the chamber. So of the two characters, she is the one that has maintained this presence of mind, this ensuring that they don't get found out. Interestingly, in our analysis of language here as well, you've got the imperative, give me the daggers, but also we've got the mention of the devil. And obviously, again, we're going biblically, we're going historically with references to the devil. If you go to hell, obviously, it's because you've sinned, because you've done something immoral. And so here we have that subtly mentioned, and therefore, I suppose, to some extent, it foreshadows the downfall of both characters, but particularly her in this instant. When we get to Act 1, Scene 7, then, Macbeth gives us that huge soliloquy and also says, I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition which overleaps itself and falls on the other. So it's almost as if Macbeth is being honest with himself now and confronting his own conscience, because he admits here that he hasn't got a good reason to kill Duncan, because Duncan is a good king. And we're reminded that Macbeth just wants power for himself. Now, in terms of language, this is an extended metaphor. And remember that his only reason for committing the deed is his own vaulting ambition, which is his tragic flaw. And the metaphor refers to horses and horsemanship. This metaphor suggests an inexperienced and ridiculous rider tries to vault onto a horse and vaults so vigorously or violently that he goes right over the saddle and falls in a heap on the ground. If we relate this to Macbeth's ambition, then he's foreseeing that this is a serious mistake. He's almost foreshadowing his own downfall, that to murder Duncan, because he has no excuse for doing so, will lead to his own ruin. So we have two things at play here, the extended metaphor of the horses and this idea that he is foreshadowing his own downfall because of his own tragic flaw. Interestingly then, and this is a quotation from Ross, he actually points out that ambition is to blame for Duncan's murder. So this is a good quotation to have. However, he accuses Duncan's children of going against nature and killing their own father. Obviously, we know it was Macbeth. Therefore, we have to wonder, is Macbeth going against nature as well? And we would argue yes, in light of the divine right of kings. This idea that the king is appointed at the discretion of God. Because remember, Macbeth has interfered with that, hasn't he, by killing Duncan. So if you look again, you could analyse against nature still there, thriftless ambition. So in terms of language, you can analyse those. And this idea that ambition in this play is arguably working against nature and what is naturally supposed to happen in the natural order of royalty. Your translation of the quotation, if you need, is in blue there. Everything about this is unnatural. What a stupid ambition, causing a son to kill the father who supports him. Then it looks like Macbeth will become the king. So again, this is a huge quote that we can take in terms of ambition, this idea that it's going against nature. And I suppose to some extent, if Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, by interfering, are defying religion, then it's no wonder that inevitably they are punished by the end. Act 3, Scene 1 then is interestingly a moment with Banquo. And he says, "Thou has it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all, as the weird women promised, and I fear thou playest most foully for it. Yet it was said it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them, as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine. Why, by their verities on thee made good. May they not be my oracles as well, and set me up in hope, but hush no more." Now your translation is in blue, but basically here Banquo suspects Macbeth of the killing, but remember the problem we've got is that he keeps it to himself, because we can probably argue that he's excited about his children being the root and father of many kings, and then we could argue that Banquo's ambition is transferred to his children, and that is why he doesn't tell anybody that Macbeth has played most foully for it. And look, he says that himself. Now, if you want your translation, obviously it's there. You have it all. You're the king, the Thane of Cawdor, the Thane of Glamis, just like the weird women promised. And I suspect you cheated to win these titles. But it was also prophesied that the crown would not go to your descendants and that my sons and grandsons would be king instead. If the witches tell the truth, which they did about you, maybe what they said about me will come true too. I'll shut up now. So interestingly, when we're analysing language in terms of Banquo here, we've got thou played most foully for it. So we know that he suspects Macbeth has won the crown via murder. But also we've got this idea that he hushes himself at the end, but hush no more. And that's the problem, because he doesn't tell anybody, and therefore we know that potentially he is ambitious himself, in the sense that he knows his children, if the witches are right, are going to go on and prosper. And then again, you've got this metaphor, their speeches shine. Look at that, this idea of something positive coming to Banquo and his children through the prophecies. So whilst Banquo serves to be more morally stronger than Macbeth, and that's on my Banquo video if you need, here he shows a bit of a weakness in the sense that by not telling anybody, it leads to his own death, really, doesn't it? Metaphorically as well, if you look at root and father of many kings, then we've got obviously root being something natural. And again, what we're talking about here is, are they defying nature or are they not in terms of Banquo? Is it the natural order of things that his children were going to become the next kings? Or are they also essentially defying nature? Because again, it's come from the prophecies, hasn't it? Rather than being passed down from Duncan to his children. So we've got this metaphor, much like the horse metaphor, of something a little bit more natural in terms of root. As we know, as the play progresses, we know that obviously Macbeth worsens in terms of determination, sinister acts, etc. And here he says, "for mine own good." So he actually admits now that he's doing it all for his own good. But as he carries on, he says, "For all causes shall give way. I am in blood stepped in so far, that should I wait no more, returning were as tedious as go over." So basically what he's essentially saying here is that he has gone so far in terms of murder and killing others that it is easier for him to surrender himself to the darkness and to the evil than it is for him to go back. So literally and metaphorically, he is stepped in blood and he can't return to his former self. It's this image, if we're talking about imagery, that he is in the middle of a pool of blood. And if he wants to move forward or backward, it is just as difficult. So I suppose this is essentially, or arguably, Macbeth giving in to temptation and giving in to something more wicked. Our blood imagery is obviously massively prevalent in this play. It reminds us of Lady Macbeth. Will his hands ne'er be clean, out damned spot? It also reminds us of him in the sense that he says he's murdered sleep. So this imagery, this massive imagery of blood here, shows us again where ambition has led him, and almost this idea that he can't quite stop himself. As we reach the end of the play, then we come to Macduff, and Macduff says, "Either thou, Macbeth, or else my sword, with an unbattered edge, I sheathe again undeeded. There thou shouldst be, by this great clatter, one of greatest note, seems bruited, let me find him, fortune and more I beg not." So basically, your translation is in blue there at the top. "I'll either fight you, Macbeth, or else I'll put my sword down unused. You must be over there. By the great noise, it sounds like one of the highest ranking men is being announced. I hope I find him. I ask for nothing more than that." Now, this is interesting because Macduff juxtaposes Macbeth here. And this is arguably how you do ambition right, how you do it correctly. So Macduff wants to avenge his family and his king. He doesn't seek power for himself. He doesn't want to rule. He's content to be Fortune's tool. And he says that, "Fortune, and let me find him, fortune, and more I beg not." So he's saying, I don't need anything more than this. Whereas Macbeth's ambition leads him to kill a king, to kill Banquo, to attack Macduff's family and kill them. So again, Macduff juxtaposes Macbeth here by knowing when ambition, the limit of ambition. He knows the limit to his ambition, and actually he's avenging his family and his king here. He's doing it in the honourable way, whereas Macbeth obviously didn't. So again, I suppose Shakespeare here uses Macduff to show us how it should have been done, but perhaps how Macbeth should have honoured his king rather than betray him. If you're wanting to use this in an exam, obviously just put the end there. Let me find him, fortune, and more I beg not. Again, this idea that he won't interfere with fate, whereas we know Macbeth has. And then we come to the very end and we get Macbeth. Again, your translation's in blue, and he says, "She should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, out, brief candle, life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot full of sound and fury, signifying nothing." I've got a few slides on this speech, so stay with me if you can. So basically, Macbeth eventually realises that his ambition... Sorry, I can't speak. Macbeth eventually realises that his ambition is useless. Malcolm is going to be king and Macbeth is going to die. Lady Macbeth is also dead now, so his wife's gone. So your translations there if you need before we analyse. We've got, "She would have died later anyway. That news was bound to come someday, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. The days creep slowly along until the end of time, and every day that's already happened has taken fools that much closer to their deaths. Out, out, brief candle. Life is nothing more than illusion. It's like a poor actor who struts and worries for his hour on the stage and then is never heard from again. Life is a story told by an idiot, full of noise and emotional disturbance, but devoid of meaning." So I'm going to move on now to analysis of this. So the ultimate awful tragedy of Macbeth is that after all of these heinous acts, the murdering of the king, the murdering of his friend Banquo, the death of his wife, that he comes to the conclusion that life is meaningless and that we are all on the road to a dusty death. Look at that alliteration, dusty death. And that life is depressing and that our days creep along at a petty pace. Again, look at your alliteration there. And that he realises that actually our time on earth is unimportant, and that he's going to be forgotten. And now what he does here is he compares our lives and his life to a shadow. So we've got this life's but a walking shadow. So the personification of your life there is a walking shadow, and to show us just how pathetic our lives are, he then compares us to this actor on the stage who is never heard of no more. He worries about his performance, but then is forgotten, and he disappears into nothingness, and he leaves nothing of meaning behind. And I suppose we could argue that Macbeth is potentially speaking about himself here, that nobody's going to remember what he's done, and nobody's going to remember his life, because we've got this shadow, we've got this awful idea that we're all just waiting to die, essentially, in this depressing speech to end. I'm going to talk about ambition on the next little bit, but basically all of his ambitions have led him to this moment, and this moment now is the conclusion that it is meaningless, that his ambition has been meaningless because he's going to die. Lady Macbeth has died. Her ambition and her desire was meaningless. They, as I said earlier, are both punished. Are they punished because they defy God? Are they punished because they have unbridled ambition? Obviously, you need to ask yourself that. But they both die. We also get this line, out, out, brief candle. Macbeth now sees that reality is nothing but eternal darkness. So this idea that before we're born there's darkness and blackness and silence, and that when we die there is. So he compares being alive to being this brief light provided by a single candle. And as we know, a candle will burn out. So we've got this adjective brief, and this idea that we think we're important and that our desires are significant, but we're not. We're shadows, as mentioned earlier, and that we will disappear, much like the candle flame. And we realise the conclusion of his unbridled ambition here. Macbeth is wishing that his own personal candle will burn out because he's tired of his existence. And it almost echoes the words of Lady Macbeth, because she began without damn spot. And what he does is he sees how futile and pointless his own ambitions were. So ultimately then, ambition has serious consequences in the play. Macbeth becomes a tyrant and Lady Macbeth commits suicide. Shakespeare does not give either character the opportunity to enjoy what they have achieved. So neither of them enjoy being the king or the queen, suggesting that it is more satisfying to achieve our goals fairly than through corruption. Also, as an audience member, we must ask if Shakespeare is suggesting that defying God and the divine right of kings is punishable, and in this play it is punishable by death. Or is it more about moral values? Remember, Banquo and Macduff served to highlight the moral flaws present within Macbeth and arguably Lady Macbeth. Don't forget, Macbeth is our tragic hero, and therefore his tragic flaw is ambition and over-ambition. Typically, our tragic hero is a figure of high respect, of a noble background, and we know that from the beginning of the play when he is described as brave and valiant. But this person is predominantly good, and as we know, suffers because of their flaw. The tragic flaw and the tragic hero then suffer a tremendous downfall. In every Shakespearean tragic hero loses their life by the end of the play so that order can be re-established. In the opening of the play, Macbeth is established as being great. He has already earned the title Thane of Glamis, and as prophesied by the witches, takes the reign of Thane of Cawdor. These titles indicate that Macbeth is of great political importance and is moving up in the ranks of Scottish nobility. Also in Act 1, Scene 2, King Duncan addresses him as valiant, worthy, the worthy Thane. Macbeth's blind ambition, along with the provoking of his wife, leads him to take a violent path to the throne. Following the format of a tragic hero, Macbeth suffers from the tragic flaw. After the witches tell Macbeth about his bright future of nobility in Scotland, his honourable nature fades. With the help from his persuasive wife, he murders Duncan. By the end of the play, 4 deaths can be attributed to Macbeth's name, all murdered in hopes of protecting his kingship. His ambition blinds him from seeing the destructive path he has created, and he rules as a tyrant. I hope this video has been useful in terms of potential things we can say about ambition. If you need my videos on Banquo, Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, just check the YouTube channel. Massive good luck in your literature exam.